knew that Stephen A. Smith was the voice of reason? You guys gotta watch as he absolutely demolishes Sonny Hostin. You're not gonna want to miss this.
Stephen A., your thoughts on the election as it just went down?
I was surprised at how lopsided it was. I was not surprised by the outcome.
Right.
I saw the outcome coming from a mile away. You have to take into account, listen, we respect our president, Joe Biden, but here's the reality. He got into office, he promised to be a transitional president, to be a stopgap to pave the way for somebody else to come on board. Into the midterms, it was supposed to be a red wave. It did not happen. The Democrats was flying high. He felt the momentum because he was the incumbent. And instead of leaving, he decided to stay. Yeah. When he decided to stay, the Democrats were in a quandary because they were expecting him to leave. Now he wants to stay. They're around him. They're seeing the fastball has dissipated to some degree. They're seeing that he's not what he used to be. And what do you do about it? You grease the skids. There's no primary for him to experience. You let him go on stage June 27th, and clearly he was exposed. 3.5 weeks later, he's forced and compelled to step away because donors to the Democratic establishment, they were not going to support that. And then Kamala Harris is inserted. I don't blame her one bit.
Same.
I thought she did a phenomenal job.
Yep.
She went all out. She did what she could. But you can't overcome that kind of situation. And remember, there's 2 C words that are incredibly important in America. Capitalism is one. Competition is another, because it's a metaphor for capitalism in a lot of people's eyes. Because you were inserted, even though you were the vice president and it was the Biden-Harris administration, you had folks who are independent. I'm not talking about those on the right, and I'm not talking about those on the left, just independents, who said, wait a minute. She didn't experience a primary either. And the last time we saw her in a primary was 4 years ago, and she didn't even make it to Iowa. They used that as an excuse to point to her level of inexperience. Then you got the war in Russia and Ukraine. You got the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, Hamas and Hezbollah and all of that stuff. And you had Trump using codes. Look, do you want her? Where is she? Where's the interviews? Where's she showing herself? Where's the tough questions? Where's the interrogation? And he leaned on certain things. And you knew people were going to gravitate to that because right now, as divided as our country is, fear comes associated with that.
People were going to gravitate towards that because it's the absolute truth. When she campaigned to become president in 2020, she didn't even finish in the top 10 of all the Democratic candidates. She did not receive a single vote to become the Democratic nominee. They forced Joe Biden out. Say you're supposed to box against someone. You're supposed to go 12 rounds. And in round 6, they swap him out and put in someone brand new. How do you possibly call yourself the Democratic Party? And that was the least Democratic thing I've ever seen in America. So if Trump wants to shine a light at her incompetence and what she did not achieve in her 4 years as vice president, I think he's well within his means. I think that is an accurate representation of what 4 years of her as the president would entail.
Yeah.
And people bought it, hook, line, and sinker. And that's why he's the president.
And Stephen, let me ask you, because I agree on all counts. There's a lot to unpack of what kind of went wrong for Democrats here. I think a factor is the working class feeling left behind, not reaching out to rural Americans. But what do you identify as what Democrats got wrong? And it seems like you agree Biden maybe should have stepped aside sooner.
He definitely should have stepped aside. I said it a year ago. I was on camera, everybody was getting on me. I said it a year ago. He needs to step aside.
You took some heat.
You remember, though, that he said, does everybody remember he originally said he was just going to do it for 4 years?
That's right. That's what I brought up.
Right. And did you think that once you know who stepped in, he said, well, there's nobody, we don't have anybody?
Well, the point is that it's not about who you're going up against when you know you're not what you used to be. And see, this is where covering sports puts me at a distinct advantage. I cover people every day where it's time for you to go, but you're holding on and you don't want to leave. People who cover the world of sports are accustomed to seeing that all the time. And so now here you are, to answer your question directly, you are the left, you leaned and you were a prisoner to the extreme left in a lot of people's eyes. Well, guess what? Most of America doesn't operate on the fringes. Whether you're left or you're right, you're relatively centrist. You believe in compromise, negotiation, working with one another. Nobody gets to get everything they want. The problem is those on the fringes continuously push for you to get everything you want.
Yeah.
They're not about getting things done. They're about getting their way. And if they're not going to get their way, they're about complaining and griping about it, because they understand that when you are operating based off of grievance, that's usually what provokes you to get to the polls. And that is why they don't mind feeling aggrieved and displaying and disseminating that kind of message, because they know people are going to gravitate to that. And as a result, that might get them to the polls, you thinking you're going to get what you want as a result of it. And in this particular case, the Republicans were right.
So you think the Republicans are sort of an extreme fringe party?
No,
at
I
this point?
I don't think that they're an extreme fringe party. I think that they're operating against those they believe are extreme on the left. Like, for example, when you talk about the LGBTQ community, I'm a fiscal conservative and I'm a social liberal. I'm fiscal with my dollars. I ain't apologizing for not wanting to pay high taxes to anybody. I'm not apologizing for that, right? But outside of that, I'm pretty liberal. Live and let live, okay? But you had folks on the left that were introducing some things when we got in the whole transgender issue, and they were talking about bathrooms, or they were talking about males transitioning to females and competing against girls in sports and stuff like that. These
That's
are
less than 1% of the population.
I understand that,
But you know what? Add Aaron
ridiculous.
during the NFL.
But see, I think that's where the mistake is made.
Yeah, 'cause-
You're saying it's ridiculous. I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
But most of the voters out there don't think like that.
But
that
means they don't have the information.
Okay, but 90% of the voters don't have the information. If you're out there busting your tail to make ends meet and to pay your bills, and you're going to work every day, and you got a family to take care of, and you're in New York City, you're getting stuck 2 hours of your day, you're stuck in traffic. You understand? You got a whole bunch of stuff to go through. You don't have time to know what you and I know.
Maybe you need to listen to the news when you're in traffic.
Who is this woman and where does she get off? Maybe you have to listen to the news. Maybe you have to educate yourself. Excuse me, lady. I don't think it's unfair to say that you don't want your school district informing your kids to change genders and talking about transgender stuff. Leave that for the adults. If you're over the age of 18, you want to go about that route, go right ahead. Most people are not going to give you any grievances. It's when you introduce the kids. Do you know how daft and obnoxious you sound? And it goes to show why so many people who previously identified as Democrats came flocking to the Republican Party. Because it's the party of common sense nowadays. And it's because of people like her, because she thinks she's just more intelligent and more empathetic than all of us. It is such a joke.
Stuff that's going to take you away from the things that brings down your spirit.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunately what most voters are doing.
Let me ask you this. How you want to speak?
No.
Sorry.
Sure.
Because Howard Stern says that he wasn't confident that the country was ready to elect the first female president because he knows, quote, how men talk behind closed doors about us. So we're very privileged to have a great guy here today.
Yeah.
Tell what do men say about us behind
Well,
closed
first of all,
doors?
Say it to
Do
our
tell.
faces.
Do tell.
I don't hide, so no worries there. Here's the deal. I respectfully disagree with Howard Stern, only from the standpoint that I wish he had been more specific. Why don't you say white men? Because let me tell you something about black men. We love our mamas.
I know that.
We love, and we revere black women. And when we're trifling, we know it's us. It's not them.
Right, yeah.
You
I
understand?
understand.
So when he's saying that, okay, well, then let's talk about white men. We have a white power structure that still exists in this country today. I understand the white populace in this country was over 85% at one time. It's now dipped to about 57.4%.
Yep.
The white power structure is still in place. So when we talk about misogyny, when we talk about chauvinism, when we talk about women not necessarily being empowered, well, who's in a position of power to surrender some of that power? It's white men.
I'm done. I cannot listen to this race-baiting hustler anymore. He was right in the beginning, then he just went absolutely crazy. How can you claim that there's a white power issue in this country when we have had an African-American president, not once, but twice. Look at yourself. You are a multi-millionaire. You attract millions of eyeballs every single day. How can you possibly say that white people have an upper hand over you? This is just such race-baiting nonsense. If you are looking for an excuse, you are going to find one. Simple as that. And I like what Elon Musk says on the matter. He says, we all are descendants of slaves. It just depends how far back you want to go. So does that mean every single person that has ever existed deserves reparation payments? No. How about we just live in the moment? We treat people as individuals. You judge people by their character, not the color of their skin. The only reason we always talk about racism, it seems like on a day-to-day basis, is because of these Democratic hustlers who just try and divide us all. We need to come together as Americans, stop focusing on differences, and start focusing on our similarities. We all bleed the same red blood, and we all belong to the same race, the human race. Let's stop being so divisive. Stephen A. Smith, I am disgusted by that last statement. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this down below. Do you believe that there is a white power problem in this country? Let me know. I'd love to hear that. And if you enjoyed, make sure to smash that like, comment, subscribe, and wish you guys nothing but the best. Till next time.